Nighthawk. It was one of the United States military's most sophisticated aircraft, thanks to its stealth technology. But could the know-how used to build this warplane have helped to develop China's new stealth fighter, known as the JXX? Well, the answer may come from the only place that a stealth bomber has been shot from the sky, in Serbia. Barnaby Phillips explains.
It's a bleak place, but history was made here. It was 1999, Yugoslavia under attack from NATO, when Zoltan Dani became the only person to have ever shot down a stealth bomber plane. His missile hit it in the sky, and it came down in these fields. It was an American F-117, the pride of their air force. Excited villagers could scarcely believe it. For Serbia, a moment of triumph amidst years of humiliation and retreat. Zoltan had used radar to see a plane designed to be invisible. Afterwards, he says, 3 countries offered money for his expertise. 2 from the Middle East, and a third, which he would not name, but which he describes as a rising power. Fast forward to today, and pictures emerge of China's stealth fighter plane, a breakthrough that has taken the world by surprise and led many to ask, how did China do it?
Most of the remains of the American plane are on display here at Belgrade's Aviation Museum. Now, the Chinese deny any link between their plane and the American one. Rather, they say they've developed a new stealth fighter using indigenous, entirely Chinese technology.
We met a farmer who lives near where the American plane was shot down. Like many here, he recalls how that event, briefly, transformed lives in a traditional rural community.
We found parts of the plane in the fields. Then the Chinese came here and offered us gifts and sometimes money in return for those parts. They were asking everyone. They came to my house. I gave them part of the plane. I had no use for it.
So, assuming the Chinese did get pieces of the American plane, would that have helped them to build their own very different-looking model?
Anyone who had access to the surface of the aircraft could learn about the special coating that makes it almost invisible to radar. So if they had parts of the F-117, that would have been a big advantage to developing their own stealth aircraft.
It's an intriguing story, and we'll probably never know the whole truth. Whether the Chinese really did rely on help from a small Serbian village to build a very modern plane. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera in northern Serbia.
That's it from me for now, but more from Europe a little later this news hour, including ministers grounded. Nicolas Sarkozy bans foreign holidays for his cabinet. We'll tell you why in a short while.
7 people have been killed and more than 70 have been hurt in a series of car bombs in the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk. Let's hear from Tanya Page.
As security forces race to one bomb site, another attack. Panicked voices shout instructions. It's chaos on the streets of Kirkuk, northern Iraq. This was a multiple bombing against security targets in the city. 3 explosions in quick succession. Cars used as delivery devices. The blasts took place in predominantly residential neighbourhoods. The thick black smoke pinpoints the locations. In the aftermath, security forces fan out to take control. The twisted wreckage an indication of just how powerful the blasts were. At the local hospital, those caught in the attack walk around dazed and desperate. There have been a series of attacks in the region on security forces ever since the US announced its withdrawal of troops. This attack continues that pattern. Tanya Page, Al Jazeera.
A South Sudan government minister has been shot dead at his office in the capital, Juba. The shooting was just days after a referendum confirmed that South Sudan will become Africa's newest independent state. Jimmy Lemmy was the Minister for Rural Development and Cooperation. The Interior Ministry said he was killed by his driver, who was also his brother-in-law, because of a family matter. Saudi Arabia's oil reserves are not as big as people think, according to the latest US diplomatic cables from WikiLeaks. American officials are apparently very concerned about how much the country actually has and how that could impact on the price of a barrel. Imran Khan reports.
Selling the dream, from ancient desert to modern refinery, the image the Saudis want you to see is clear. A world leader in oil production, the world's largest oil exporter, and a key player in controlling what we pay at the petrol pump. But cracks are beginning to emerge in this carefully controlled image. According to leaked diplomatic cables from the US Embassy in Riyadh, one senior oil executive has cast serious doubt over Saudi Arabia's oil capacity. To encourage investment and confidence, you need a credible system of telling the world exactly how much oil you can access. Officially, Saudi Arabia says it has 716 billion barrels of oil in reserve. Not so, says Sadat al-Husseini, a former senior oil executive quoted in the US diplomatic cables. He says they're overselling oil reserves by as much as 40%. That's a massive drop. The US is clearly worried. Saudi is one of its biggest oil providers. If proved true, its impact on oil prices could be profound. The more you pump and get on the market, the cheaper oil becomes. For investors, knowing exactly how much Saudi oil there is crucial. Reserves then become critical in predicting oil prices. Saudi Arabia finds itself with a problem. More and more oil experts are beginning to question Saudi reserves. That could have an impact globally. Any downgrading of Saudi reserves would send oil prices up. That's a nightmare scenario for a world dependent on oil. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera.
The Indonesian Muslim cleric Abu Bakar Bashir is about to go on trial again. And we'll be telling you why prosecutors are hoping for them it's third time lucky. And they've collapsed after just 2 days. They couldn't even agree on an agenda. The talks between North and South Korea are again at an end. We'll tell you why when we come back.
Malaysian ingenuity has created amongst the world's greenest, most cost-efficient buildings. It's created the world's tallest self-installing wellhead platform, designed the largest and most advanced racecourses, and constructed the most futuristic Formula One racing circuits. When the world needs services of the highest caliber and creativity, they look to Malaysia. Service excellence for the world.
Qatar Tourism Authority invites you to the 8th Doha Jewellery and Watches Exhibition from the 15th to the 20th of February 2011 at the Doha Exhibition Centre. Sponsored by Qatar National Bank and Qatar Airways.
See the world from every angle and every side. Al Jazeera.
David Foster with you here on this Al Jazeera News Hour, the update of events in Egypt this hour. Thousands of people continuing their protests in Cairo against the country's government. In Tahrir, that's Liberation Square, and now outside the country's parliament, where they've been joined by 3 independent trades unions now. Workers in Cairo, Alexandria and Suez have gone on strike protesting about pay and conditions. And a group of political and business leaders known by some as the Wise Men have started talks with the Vice President about transferring power away from Hosni Mubarak. We spoke to one a short while ago who said the talks didn't seem to be going anywhere. More than 1,000 police in Indonesia are being deployed for the latest trial of the Muslim cleric Abu Bakar Bashir. It's the 3rd time he's been before the courts in 10 years. And this time he's been accused of funding a terrorist training camp. Step Vassen reports.
He is known for his fiery speeches and endless campaign for an Indonesian Islamic State. 72-year-old Abu Bakr Bashir has never been convicted of direct involvement in terrorist attacks, despite 2 previous trials and jail terms. Prosecutors now say they have enough evidence showing Bashir has funded a terrorist training camp in Aceh and helped to buy weapons used to commit acts of terror. Footage has emerged of the camp in Aceh, where armed fighters can be seen undergoing military training. In a statement, they call themselves Al-Qaeda Indonesia. More than 130 members of the group were arrested after police raided the camp in 2010. Those who escaped were allegedly involved in bank robberies and an attack on a police station that killed several policemen. Prosecutors say they now have evidence the group was planning Mumbai-style attacks, allegedly targeting embassies, hotels and the presidential palace. Bashir is the founder of an Islamic boarding school in central Java that has educated several people convicted for terrorism in the past. The cleric has a small but dedicated group of followers. He spent 2 years in prison in connection with the Bali attacks in 2002, but was never proven to be the leader of Jemaah Islamiyah, the network held responsible for the bombings. In 2004 he was jailed again, but got an early release in 2006. Abu Bakr Bashir has kept silent so far, but he did write a letter obtained by Al Jazeera in which he uses several verses from the Quran to endorse the armed training camp in Aceh. But if this letter and the testimony of 134 witnesses will be enough to jail him for terrorism is still a serious challenge for the prosecution. Step Fasten, Al Jazeera, Jakarta.
Lauren Taylor's with us again from London. Now, Lauren, you get to choose where you go on holiday. I get to choose, but it seems if you're in the French government these days, you don't get a choice.
No, that's right. They're being advised to stay at home, preferably. I suppose it's not such a hardship if you live in France. And this all follows revelations that the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister went on free holidays in crisis-hit North African countries. One trip included a plane that was loaned by Egypt's Hosni Mubarak. Rory Challens reports.
Prime Minister François Fillon would probably like to escape France at the moment. So too would Foreign Minister Michel Alliot-Marie. The problem is that's exactly what's got them both into trouble. Monsieur Fillon took his family on holiday to the Nile resort of Aswan, courtesy of Egypt's unpopular President Hosni Mubarak.